New Thought Media Network. We are a global broadcast network of positive music, media, and entertainment, inspiring humanity's evolution along the journey of enlightenment and creating a world of love, peace, empowerment, and prosperity for all. New Thought Media Network. Positively inspiring.
Good morning, everyone. And I'm saying good morning because it's Saturday morning for me. It's 8 a.m. in Southern California, and it is an awesome day today. And I'm enjoying being with you and being able to talk about this wonderful book of Science of Mind. And these are just absolutely wonderful. I'm so happy I'm a part of this group to be able to have a conversation with you about the teachings of Science of Mind. And of course, the Science of Mind was, and I'm going to say Science of Mind and Spirit, was founded by Ernest Holmes, and it is a part of the New Thought movement. And we're right in the middle of studying this book. We're almost right smack dab, about a third of the way through, a little bit more than a third of the way through of the book. And we're on chapter 18, the law of attraction. And I was excited to be able to pick up this chapter because I think the law of attraction has become very popular, has a certain use in popular culture, and it's become just out there, and people talk about it in various ways, and oftentimes it's almost talked about as if it's magical thinking, right? And that's not at all what this is about. It really is about clearly seen and experienced ways of being in the world, and guided by ancient wisdom, right, from Western philosophers, Eastern philosophers, and spiritual leaders and prophets, all of that big bowl of wisdom that we have as humanity. And I always begin by saying that, we look at this language that's used, and I try to change the language to be inclusive language, and knowing that Ernest Holmes was writing during his period of time, and he uses, man, and he uses he, he uses those kinds of pronouns and ways of speaking that were prevalent in his time, and they were thought to be inclusive at that time, or they were thought to be descriptive of the whole. And as we have evolved in our way of thinking and our way of using language, we know that those things actually helped exclude people. So I'll change the language as best I can as we go through this chapter of the law of attraction. But, just know that I am changing it to reflect more modern usage of language with the intention of more inclusivity. And this is really important right now because, we do see that inclusion is kind of being tested right now. So we have to really be aware of how we speak and how just our everyday actions can create an atmosphere of exclusion rather than inclusion. And that brings us to this very first part of this chapter, which is called Thought Atmosphere. And that's what we're working on in Science Mind and Spirit. We're working on that thought atmosphere that we all create for ourselves and as a whole of humanity, what we create for the species, right? For our species, and how that can spill over into everything, right? As we create that thought atmosphere and we act on it, then we have unintended consequences, and at times intended consequences for our thought atmosphere. And I want to point out just very clearly that this is not magic. The law of attraction is not magic. It's based on science. It's based on real life application of these ideas, and humans experimentation with this over the years and experience with it. So that's what we're dealing with. We're not dealing with anything that is hocus pocus or and I'm using that loosely. There's a lot of ways we can go with talking about magic, but I'm using that in the more popular way that it's not based in reality. We're firmly based in both the material and spiritual world because we see that as reflections of the one source. So, thought atmosphere. So we are looking at how do we use these mental laws that Ernest Holmes is so apt to use throughout his work. There's all these laws that come up, and the law of attraction is one of them. So at the beginning of this chapter, in the very first paragraph, he says spiritual mind healing is a result of the constructive use of a mental law, which the world is gradually beginning to understand. Since we are thinking beings and cannot stop thinking, and since creative mind receives our thought and cannot stop creating, it must always be creating something for us. What it will make depends wholly upon what we are thinking, and what we shall attract will depend upon that on which our thoughts dwell. And I think this is a powerful opening statement. And for this chapter, it, firmly sets us in this space of what we create is wholly dependent on what we are thinking, right? What we are thinking. And what we shall attract will depend on that which our thoughts dwell. That doesn't mean, he also says in this opening paragraph, the mind thinks. That's just what it does. We're always thinking. And if you pay attention to your life, right, you know that you're always thinking. There's always something operating during both our waking hours and our sleep hours. There's something going on. There's thought taking place. Sometimes we're focused on a task at hand, Sometimes we're thinking about something completely different, and sometimes it feels like we're thinking thoughts that are running in every which direction possible, right? So we're always thinking. That's what the mind does. The mind thinks. That's that's a function of it. It just thinks. It's running. It's going. And so we know that happens. So there's all these random thoughts that we have, and they really don't have any meaning in and of themselves, right? We can have all kinds of random thoughts. We can have some that are not very nice, and we can have some that are beautiful, and we can have some that are neutral. We can have every kind of category imaginable in our thought. But the important thing is that what we attract to us is that which we dwell on. So if we dwell on a particular thing, that's what we're going to see pop up in our life, right? That's what we're going to notice because we're putting our attention on it. And we are going to notice that, and it will appear in our life much larger than it is in some cases. And and we can create a lot of different things by dwelling on something. And oftentimes I think that, what we dwell on, because we have not been taught from childhood to pay attention to our thoughts generally, right? I'm always happy when we have children coming up and with these teachings that, we do start training children to think about these things, right? To dwell on the good, dwell on that which we desire, that is wholesome and life affirming. And because we haven't had that, most of us, we have to retrain ourselves, right? What are we going to dwell on? We all have all kinds of things that hold us back from taking action. And yet, if we are single minded and focus on that which is wholesome and good for us and life affirming, then that's what's gonna be the outcome of it. And that's the law of attraction, plain and simple. And that doesn't mean that we're going to be free of challenges. That doesn't mean that we're going to be free of uh, the thinking of other people and the creative atmosphere that other people are making, right? Or that thought atmosphere that others are making. That doesn't mean that we're going to be immune from that, but it means that we are going to bring together that which we desire in our lives. So there may be a lot of texture to this, and we are training ourselves and getting into that place of spirit where we can deal with anything that comes up, right? We can deal with it because we are in that space of pure spirit, dwelling on spirit, not on appearances. So he goes on to say that the mental atmosphere is the direct result of human beings' conscious and unconscious thought, which when which in its turn becomes the direct reason for and cause of that which comes into their life. Through this power, we are either attracting or repelling. Like attracts, and it is also true that we may become attracted to something which is greater than our previous experience by first embodying the atmosphere of our desire. Oh my goodness, what does that mean? Embodying the atmosphere of our desire. Wow. What is it that you desire? I'm thinking about, just the basic things that I desire, and I have to say, I have everything I desire. I have a home that is cool in the summer and warm in the winter. I have a safe place that I can come and read and study and do whatever. My living space is wonderful. I have an outdoor space that is gorgeous and gives me so much pleasure. I really think that this is the outcome of this is what I desired in my life, and this is what I have, and I'm so grateful for it. So this mental atmosphere of embodying that which I desire, I think that I have that. What do I want for the wider world? I want all those basic needs met, right? I want all my neighbors to have their basic needs met. I want all my neighbors to be happy and healthy and have those things that we can provide as a society. Friendship, success. And I want everyone to feel personally responsible for themselves and responsible to their fellow human beings. And those are things that I desire. And and I also think that Centers for Spiritual Living with the global vision, those are all things that I desire too. Beauty in my life, for example. I love artwork. I love the act of creation, no matter where it takes place, whether it's on canvas, in fiber arts, whatever it is, right? I just find the creation of beauty and the enjoyment of beauty to be something that is absolutely necessary. The beauty of nature. Those are all my desires. I also desire having a wonderful environment, right? So the mental atmosphere that I try to embody is that, right? And it's a work, it's a daily work in progress. We learn more, we're able to take time to um, focus on that which we want to see come into fruition. And that is what it is to embody it. We don't just think about it, in other words, we embody it. We act on those thoughts. And even before we act on those thoughts, we align with spirit, with those God qualities that are present. And, that comes to this next point. And we take as our starting point the idea that the essence of humanity or a single person's life is God. That's our essence. So however we understand God, that's what we're talking about. And it is not that understanding of God is a bearded guy in the sky. I think we all are moving away from that older idea, which was helpful, for us as human beings to have a relationship with God. That was helpful at one point, but it's so much bigger than that. It's so much more than that. And of course, I've come to know that I can never really adequately define what that is, but I can define it for myself as that life, right? I define it as life. All those things that go into creating life, and life that I experience here on earth, but life that is everywhere present, right? All of these things working together for the creation of life and for maintaining that life. Everything has a purpose, right? So we know that that is our starting point. We start right where God is. Everything originates from that one source, and everything returns to that one source. So it's this wonderful system of coming into being, moving into form, and moving out of form. So we know that that is a part of who and what this thought is about. Let's see where we can go next. Let's go to the next paragraph on page 295, the first real paragraph. Everyone automatically attracts to themselves just what they are, and may set it down that wherever we are, however intolerable the situation may be, we are just where we belong. Okay, so I think that's sort of like saying it is what it is at any moment, right? It is what it is. It might be intolerable, and it is what it is. There's no power in the universe but ourselves that can set us free. Someone may help us on the road to realization, but substantiality and permanence can come only through the consciousness of our own life and thought. Okay, that sounds a little bit like, oh my goodness, no one can set me free except myself. And then once we kind of get over that shock of that, right? Oh no, there's no savior out there that's coming to save me. The only thing that can set me free is myself. Is there's something that happens when we realize that is absolutely freeing. It's sort of like we realize, oh, we're in a cage, and the cage door is open, but we're just sitting in there, right? We're just sitting in the cage, and we can walk through the door anytime we want. Anytime the cage door is open. And, realizing that is absolutely freedom, right? We have that power as thinking beings, as divine emanations of God. So he goes on to say, humanity must bring itself to the place in mind where there is no misfortune, no calamity, no accident, no trouble, no confusion. There is nothing but plenty, peace, power, life, and truth. That's ultimate reality. All of these other things are appearances. They are what they're a part of that. It is what it is. But in themselves, they are just these acts, right? They're just things along the way of life. They're not permanent. They are only for us to move through and come to a deeper realization of who we are. And I love this next part. I think it's just so wonderful. Humans should definitely, daily, using their own name, declare the truth about themselves, realizing that they are reflecting their statements into consciousness and that they will be operated on. Okay, so let's individualize that. I should definitely, daily, using my own name, declare the truth about myself, realizing that I am reflecting my statements into consciousness and that they will be operated upon by it. Now, this is really easy. This is really easy to see that this is a definite truth. How I think everyone has had the experience of being down on yourself at some point, or looking into the mirror and say, "Oh my God, I must be I must be the ugliest person in the world," or whatever, right? But being down on ourselves in some way, and by changing that, right, by seeing who we truly are, by recognizing that there's nothing but plenty, peace, power, life, and truth, then we can embody that. We can see it finally in ourselves. And, I know that Louise Hay does mirror work. It's sort of that kind of thing. We're looking at ourselves and making that declaration and what is called a high invocation of who we are. And I just invite you to try it right now, whatever it might be. I am when several years back, when I went to a financial advisor, the person was helping me through things, and this was when I was a student, and so I didn't have much of an income at that point. But finally, this financial advisor just said, "You know what? You just don't have enough money." And I was like, I could have told you that, right? But I decided, okay, I'm not going to dwell on I don't have enough money. I'm going to actually say to myself, I am prosperous. I am prosperous. And I did that thousands of times, right? And you know what? All my needs were met. And it changed my entire way of being. I had everything that I needed. I may not have had uh, designer clothes or designer purses or whatever, but I had everything that I needed, and I felt like I was the most prosperous person in the world. And it changed my demeanor. It changed how I felt about myself, and it changed how I entered into the world at any given moment. And that is high invocation. And you can do it in any way, if you feel like whatever area you want to tweak, do that high invocation and plant into yourself those seeds of those high qualities of God. Plant them, allow them, nurture them, allow them to grow. Well, let's look at this next one. I think this is an interesting point too. One of the ancient sayings is that to the man who can perfectly practice in action, all things are possible. This sounds like a contradiction until one penetrates its inner meaning, for it is only when one completely practices in action that he arrives at the point of the true actor. For he then realizes that the act and the actor are one and the same, that cause and effect are the same, which is simply a different way of saying, know the truth, and the truth will make you free. To reduce the whole thing to its simplest form, whatever one reflects into mind tends to take form. Okay, I just gave you the example of I reflected into mind, I'm prosperous, even after the financial advisor said, you don't have enough money, right? And I paid my bills. I had food on the table. I paid my rent. I mean, everything, right? I was that. I was prosperous. And that took form. That took place. It wasn't magical. It was putting planting that seed and then watching it grow and watching, how I was spending my money, what I was bringing in, and even finding other opportunities that would increase my income. So it was not magic. It was all things working together for my good, and recognizing that all things are working together for my good. It might not be immediate, like saying hocus pocus, there it is, pops up, but it developed, it became my reality. And one of the things that I want to go into is because, I think I was talking to an older friend in her 80s this past week, and she has a lot of friends. And I've talked to people who are older who are finding it very difficult to find friends. And, so I know that it is an issue, especially, if you're older or if you move a lot, as we do these days. People move all the time because of for jobs, for more opportunity, whatever it might be, and they find themselves in new places. And what does it do? It can be disconcerting because you don't have the same support system that you had built in the last place that you were. So here is the opportunity again. How do we attract friends? How do we make friends? And I love this always. He quotes Emerson and he says, "If you want a friend, be a friend." And that is the simplest thing that I can, that simplest sounding thing possible, right? If you want a friend, be a friend. And, I think that we should all have that on our mirrors always. Be a friend. Know that that is what we're working toward. We desire friends. Okay, work on setting that intention in that high invocation. I am a friend. What does that entail for you? What does it mean to be a friend? One of the biggest things I think that is a part of friendship is trust. So be trustworthy. Hold confidences of your friends. Follow through on what you say you're going to do with your friends. Listen. Be there. Show up. All those things that make relationships wonderful. Be a friend if you want a friend. He goes on to say that the idea of friendship draws upon the consciousness. The law of attraction produces friends. For one is the picture and the other is the thing. This is the great teaching of involution and evolution. The thought involved and the result evolved. One is the treatment and the other is the demonstration. So I just gave you an example of, yes, the treatment. I am a friend. I am the best friend ever. And then we act on it. We listen. We search out people. We strike up conversations with folks. We reach out. We listen. We show up. We're loyal. Whatever your criteria is for a friend, be that. Set it in mind. Be that. So we're thinking of those ideal relationships and enjoy them, in our minds, and know that they are there. And it's not that we're going to say, okay, I know that person's going to be well, I want that person to be my friend. I want that person to be my friend. But it is an opening up to this wide world of people that will come in when you're a friend. They may be, some other, they may be the last person you ever thought would be your friend. Just because you didn't know them, you weren't putting that out there that you are a friend. And you will bring that into your life by opening it up, right? Opening, not that, I have to have the friend who has the most money. I have to have the friend that has the nice car, whatever. Open it up. Open it up. And that's how we attract friends. We make that pool. We allow God to work with the whole 9 yards. We don't repel that good. We open it up. We open our arms to that. And we know that they are there. Those friends are there. Don't close down. Open up. And, part of it too is we have to love people, right? We really have to love people. And we will be loved. I mean, that's part of that attraction, right? When we're loving, we're going to get love back. And we'll get love from all kinds of different people, right? People we have no idea about. They'll just come into our lives. And as all is mind, he says this on page 298, and as we attract to us what we first become. Isn't that wonderful? We become it, and we attract that to us. We become love. We attract love to us. We become a friend. We attract friends to us. We live with a prosperous consciousness, and we attract prosperity. That's what it's about. It's not magic. It is a transformation of our consciousness that brings this to us. And, we always have to see the good in people too, to be a friend, right? See the good. Yeah, we all have little things that are our quirks, right? That make us who we are. And we all have things that we're working on to live a life that is fuller and richer. But we see the good in one another. Oh, that person, oh, they kind of do this, but look at what else they do. Oh my goodness. they love children so much. Look at how they are with those kids. Oh my gosh, how tender they are. Look how awesome they are. Whatever it might be, right? See the good. See that translated into all parts of their life. Focus on that, not on that little tiny portion that is a quirk, an irritant. Focus on the good, those wonders. Oh my goodness. Life is full. It really is full. And all of this, attracting success, however you might define that as success, we can do that by being specific about what we want, right? But not saying it has to be outlined, right? It has to be like this, because then we're closing down possibilities. We're casting our net wide, and we're just opening our arms. Actually, I like that opening our arms. And I like the image of the throw net too. How many of you have seen a throw net? And when you throw a net, you cast it out, and it's just this wide circle that just goes into the water. And then you pull in all these fish. So I love that. I love that image of casting that net, throwing that net, because we open our arms, right, when we throw the net, and then we pull it all in. So this is the concepts that we are working with. We're being specific. I want a friend who's loyal to me. I'm going to be loyal, right? We develop that in us. I want a friend I can trust. I'm going to be trustworthy. I want a friend who understands me. I'm going to listen. I'm going to listen so that I can understand somebody. I can, and ask questions and be interested and curious about them. And I'm focusing on friendship because I think it's absolutely important that we develop these relationships with one another, especially right now when there's a closing down of in the body, this body that we live in, political body, when there's a closing down and othering of all kinds of people, right? And you can we know that we're living in that kind of atmosphere right now, but we want to open it up. We are going to bring that all in to being a friend, building relationships, building success. I think that, if you're, for example, you're whatever profession that you're in, it is about building relationships. And now that we're in this technological age, there is kind of an alienation between human beings, right? There's this big mediator between us that is technology. Sometimes we can't even talk to a human being if we're dealing with a certain company. Or it may take hours and hours to do that because you have to go through, all the hoops. We've all been through that, spent hours trying to get to talk to a single human being. And then we want to have that human interaction. We want to know that someone's going to help us out, is going to help us solve this problem that we are calling to ask help with, right? So all of these things, building those relationships, are important no matter where you are in your life. If you're a teacher, building relationships with other teachers on the faculty. building relationships with the administrators, building relationships with the students, building relationships with the parents. All of that is a part of this, that human to human interaction. Now, really, we know that spirit never fails. And Ernest Holmes reminds us this on page 303. We erase any idea of failure. Now, here's where it looks as if we are not telling the truth, but we are declaring the truth about spirit that indwells in us. Spirit never fails. That's our faith, right? Spirit never fails. It never fails. And we can say that over and over again to ourselves until it becomes a reality, knowing that spirit never fails. Doesn't matter what the situation is. We know that spirit has this indwelling spirit. It blocks out any thought of lack, limitation, want, fear, failure. Spirit never fails. And what are we? We are spirit. We are directly connected to spirit, so we can never fail. So we may rest assured that as we practice, things get easier, right? We embody things. We bring it into being. And in some way, we can also release over responsibility, right? Because we know we're giving it up to spirit. Spirit is doing it. We release ego, right? Yes, we are responsible, but there is something else going on here too. We accept who we are. We step into whatever action we want to have, to make, in order to attract things into our lives. And we also know that spirit has this, and spirit has its own time. We allow that to be. And that is the heart of the matter. Spirit is all there is. So as we move through this the next chapter next week, go to that high invocation this week. Affirm who you are and have a wonderful week. And again, we love having these conversations with you. And I hope that you will take this to heart. Practice it. And Ernest Holmes always said, try it out. See if it works. And report back. Did it work? How did you practice it? What could you do differently? Did you see any shift? Just being aware and moving forward. So have a wonderful week. And I look forward to seeing you again.
Please help us say thank you to our organizational sponsors, including the Hefferland Foundation, Affiliated New Thought Network, International New Thought Alliance, Science of Mind Archives and Library Foundation, Center for Spiritual Living Denver, Center for Spiritual Living Midtown, New Thought Philadelphia, Planned Happiness Institute, Summit Center for Spiritual Living, One Heart Retreats, Center for Spiritual Living on the Lake, Unity Kitchener, Unity Spiritual Center, Ottawa. Om Center for Spiritual Living, Satya Center. Begin Within Ministries, Center for Spiritual Living, North Jersey, Unity of Savannah, and the Center for Spiritual Living, Seattle, as well as all of our individual donors. Thank you for being part of the New Thought Media Network. Please like, share, and subscribe. New Thought Media Network, positively inspiring.